No. No.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Treehouse of Horror VIII, written by Ned Goldwire, David Cohen, Mike Scully. I'm Mike Scully, executive producer and showrunner. This show originally aired October 26, 1997. And with me is
Matt Selman, junior writer at the time.
This is David Cohen. I wrote the Fly versus Fly segment.
Mark Kirkland, I directed this one. This is the only Halloween show I have directed.
This actually frightened me, this this knife thing. Oh, my God. This is Matt Groening, happy-go-lucky cartoonist.
And George Meyer, co-executive producer. Mike, you had a struggle getting them to approve this, didn't you?
Yeah, they thought it was a little bloody or violent. There was a lot of talk about the size of the sword. I think there was a lot of arguments about if it was a small knife, what's funnier, what's more horrifying, and about the sounds and the amount of blood. It was Harry Shearer, by the way, playing the Fox censor there. But I do remember a lot of discussion about the size of the knife.
Well, I remember initially it was a dagger, and then as the censors did protest that it was too gruesome, you called me up and said, make it a sword instead of a dagger.
Oh, is that what it was?
And I remember the word broadsword came into
Oh, you're
it.
right. Yes.
Said a broadsword will be acceptable.
Yeah.
So it's a broadsword.
Now, at the time we wrote this, those TV ratings were fairly new, as I recall, so that was like a big point of interest in this era.
That's true. Now, people don't look at them quite as closely now as they used to. And everybody's funny Halloween names.
This was my least exotic Halloween name ever. I just put one of those little internet smileys with a frown as my middle name, as my middle initial there. So.
Oh, that's what that was?
Yeah.
I watched it last night. I thought it was some sort of like math symbol that I didn't understand.
You have to tilt your head 90 degrees to the left, and it'll be hilarious.
This is a character, Herman, who was around a lot in the early years and then disappeared for a while, right, Matt?
Yeah, we hardly ever had him. I always wanted him, the very beginning, he was supposed to introduce himself and talk about how he lost his arm, which was going to be a different way each time. And the first time was he stuck his arm out of a bus window, in a school bus window, and got chopped off. And the second time he'd stuck his arm in a ball return at a bowling alley. And that joke got cut, and then we never pursued it. So...
I like how the last two credits are ghost written by and directed by.
It must have been a guild thing at the time. I will tell you, on this particular segment, I wrote this segment based on a movie that I loved as a kid. It was called The Omega Man with Charlton Heston. And I was like 12 or 13 years old. I just thought it was the coolest movie in the world about a nuclear blast that goes off, and he's the only man left on the planet. Based on, is it the Ray Bradbury? So, what am I thinking? I Am Legend.
You're looking at me. I'm the sci-fi.
Yeah,
guy.
I'm looking at
All I can think of is that Twilight Zone episode with the glasses guy, but that's who. Remember that?
Oh,
he's the last guy on Earth also.
yeah.
But
we just passed one of the great lines of the show. I've wasted my life.
I've wasted my
that is one of my all-time favorite Simpsons.
You're talking about Burgess Meredith.
Burgess Meredith, yeah. But I don't know what predates what.
Yeah, no,
was it Bradbury or Heinlein? Was it Robert Heinlein?
I think of Bradbury.
I love just speculating on these commentaries. I could do research.
I probably could have checked last night, but the computer was 2 or 3 feet away from me. But there's a lot in the movie The Omega Man. There's a lot of scenes like this with just abandoned cars and bodies laying in the street.
We did research that movie.
Gag
this
too.
was very funny.
That was a pure sound effects joke because you don't see the ball in the first two. It may have been a late decision.
I think it was, yes. Yeah.
I demand a lot of credit from the viewers, by the way, for something. I don't remember if it was this Halloween or the last one or the one before, but I don't think I mentioned before, so I'm demanding credit today for saving the consistent appearance of Kang and Kodos. There was one year they were out, and it may well have been this one, and I wouldn't shut up about it, how the fans would be disappointed, and it finally got put back in. So I think it may have been this one because they have such a minimal appearance that we wedged it in there.
Nice
Canyon
wedging.
Codas aren't in this episode?
No, they are.
they are.
Oh, they
I'm
are.
saying
Oh.
I succeeded.
Oh, that's how we got
I
it in.
succeeded in bullying it back in by just not shutting up about it. So. This is really a gruesome.
Very I recently saw a cell of this in a gallery, and they wanted $3,900 for that cell.
For Homer dancing in the church?
Yeah.
This was a censor note.
Yes, he could not be on the altar.
The religious thingy.
Yes, where that guy talks.
Well, was it this episode? There was another one where he was playing the cross like a guitar.
Oh, that's another episode.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this was a compromise that he'd not be actually standing on the altar. Oh, and the question where Homer asks, where did you get those cloaks? As a kid, I bought everything in the movie except where the zombies, these mutants, got these cloaks. It really bothered me a lot, so it had to go in.
And then later, Homer refers to one of them as Clokey, which I thought was hilarious. That was a Mike joke, I think. Why they're talking like that now, I don't know.
Yeah, they were all fine just a minute ago. They were quite articulate, actually. And then the designs on this, I think we just wanted to kind of cool things for the mutants to ride around in. It seems like a combination of a tractor. Oh, no, first of all, we have to apologize right there to Edgar and Johnny Winter, who we're all very big fans of, and it was all in good fun.
Safe at last. That better not be the mutants.
The great thing about doing the Halloween shows and the challenge is that you have to tell these insanely large stories in basically 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes. So you make large leaps.
Why is everyone in the family keeping their hands behind their backs like that?
There's a reason.
Can't imagine what they're doing.
Also at the dub, I remember, Matt, the final mix, the eye socket sound. We spent a long time on that.
I don't see any reason why freaks and norms.
It seems like there's been years of development of this lingo somehow.
Yes, I know. You never hear the word norms prior to that, but he acts like it's been said many times.
Beautiful Ned, and let me just say, my family and I share your vision for a better now.
See, they had something behind their backs, Dave.
No. I didn't see it coming.
Mutants, right?
This was a pretty violent segment.
You distracted them by putting the censor in there at the very beginning, and that's all the censor could focus on.
Yeah.
So they ignored the rest of this.
By the way, going just back for a second to that opening with the censor, I believe that was David Merkin's idea.
Yes, that's my recollection. as
Yeah.
well.
He was really enraged.
Because we all know the V-chip has destroyed our lives. We were also angry about it at the time, and now it crushes us.
So I did extremely limited research yesterday about that three-pronged device that just went by, because I had a recollection that was called the widget from Mad Magazine. That's how I wrote it in the script. But I discovered that Mad Magazine called it the Poiute, Poiuyt, and it's based on that appeared in Mad Magazine in 1965, but it's based on the whole location gauge, which appeared 1 year earlier in Analog Sci-Fi Magazine. So.
Wow.
And by the way, folks, if you're listening to this is what Futurama commentaries sound like.
And obviously the Fly versus Fly logo, the Fly versus Fly is based on the Spy versus Spy logo, so that's 2 Mad Magazine references in the first 3 seconds of this.
And if you look at that widget that you're talking about, David, you notice it's brown, and we put it against a brown table, and that was because there was no other logical way we could color that.
Oh, then you would,
That's why we did that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep.
And to all the girls leaving the room, please come back. Now, I do remember there was a lot of discussion over how to use this transporter. and one joke in particular, David, I don't know if you recall. Well, that was a bad shape for the cat ear medicine. Really not there. But actually, the bathroom.
Yes, I was watching this last night to review it, and I was thinking, like, it's too bad that we weren't allowed to use that peeing joke And then I noticed that it is still in here. I just assumed that it had been cut by the censor, but again, some lax work by the censor allowed this to sneak through here. So
it was one of the more heated discussions in the room about the taste level of the joke. And actually, I think David Merkin finally said he thought it was like a brilliant execution of a lowbrow joke. So if you're going to do a lowbrow joke, try and do it smart.
How often do you get to do a lowbrow joke using, the most futuristic technology? It kind of combines the most highbrow and the most lowbrow into one thing.
Yeah. I remember it always disturbed me, though, the end of that where Homer reached in and punched Lisa in the face, which actually meant she was in the bathroom.
Sitting on the toilet.
Sitting on the toilet.
That was a big discussion that I think we only realized that, maybe a month after we wrote it or something, that logically she must be sitting on the toilet when she gets punched.
I think those little musical stings that Alf put in remind me of the Outer Limits, those little chimes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because he told us he came up with those.
Well,
all right.
He rearranged those.
There was originally a long sequence there where Superfly in Bart's imagination picked up Principal Skinner, who was yelling at some students, and dropped him in a volcano, and Bart had much acclaim from the rest of the students as a result.
All right. What happened with that?
I think it was like 30 minutes long. We had to exit out of here. So.
That's true, yeah. Frequently, it's always a problem with every episode, the length of the shows and the things that have to be cut. But Halloween in particular, we always seem to be cutting a lot of scenes. Maybe we can find those cut scenes somewhere.
A lot of this outstanding...
And watch them again privately.
The outstanding camera angles in this are owed to Matthew Nastic, who storyboarded this segment, and he was also the assistant director on this episode. Lots of really cool animation camera work when Bart's a little fly and you get the POV coming up.
And yet Nastic gave as his credit for assistant director Mickey Hansen.
I think he requested that.
But he took his real credit for his storyboard. So
yeah.
Well, he's not stupid.
The credit I got was Mad Dog Kirkland, which was a nickname I had from a previous production studio. So I requested it, and you guys let me have that.
So Mickey Hansen was actually like his Halloween nickname?
Yeah.
Scary.
Very, very frightening.
Good character design by Kevin Newman, by the way.
Yep.
Yeah, the concept of the Halloween nicknames on the show did kind of change over the years from Halloween-themed scary things to plugs for various projects we were working on.
Well, my rule was that you have to make your name shorter than your real name.
Yeah.
So that's why I do what I do. Bat.
That's why.
And these were
why, hence, Groening.
Yes.
We did reference the original Fly to get some of how the spider was and stuff like that.
And this is based more on the 1958 Fly than the 1986
Matt
Fly,
did a great job here. This is all Matt Nastic. Not only storyboarding it, but I believe he handled all the layouts, and I think he managed to keep the feeling of scale. Really nicely done.
Listen, buddy, this is all a mistake. If you'll just go through the transporter with me again, we'll have you back eating garbage in no time.
Was there a lot of discussion, David, over like how we did it? Like, was it Bart's body with a fly's head, or did we of which one stayed at home, and how we worked it all out?
I'm sure there was. The only thing I remember is that there was a different ending originally. If I can tip it, if I start talking about it now, but the original ending, Bart was saved and he came out whole, and then a giant fly that was also the full size of Bart came out whole. And the family was riding it to the mall or something at the end, like a flying carpet kind of thing. So that's the only thing I remember.
But doesn't that violate the law of conservation of matter, Mr. Nerd?
Not if it was pumped up with a lot of, if it was hollow
energy.
space.
It was pumped up with energy.
Or pumped up with energy to make the mass. That's my favorite.
That's a great background joke.
I have a cell of the scene of the giant fly Bart hanging on the ceiling, and it's so scary that I keep it in the closet. I just don't like looking at it.
You just made a big mistake, Fly Boy.
It's a good thing we labeled that button on the microwave.
You wouldn't know how that happened.
I was so confused by what was happening.
We were lucky this time. But it's all too clear that some things in this universe aren't meant to be trifled with.
Homer, what are you doing?
Now, George, do you remember this ending? Was this you?
Maybe. I don't remember. It could have been Dave Birkin, too.
I'll chop you good.
Oh, one incidental thing. This was also the last episode we got staging notes from Brad Bird. And then he went on to work on Iron Giant.
Wow.
Yeah.
And later,
And
The Incredibles.
Yes. That was the last act. This was one I storyboarded.
This segment?
Yeah.
Oh, these are great. The backgrounds and all the character designs.
Lance Wilder, background supervisor.
Yep.
This
Great
Lance
stuff.
and Joe Wack.
Joe Wack design. We watched the movie The Crucible.
John Krause, Debbie Silver.
Yes. We watched that to reference these designs. And
Yeah. That was the big teen movie that year, as I recall, The Crucible. Yeah, I did love throughout the segment where Homer's constantly accusing Lisa of being a witch.
Hey, look, someone's an adulteress on the right there. Is that the Scarlet A?
Yeah, Miss Krabappel.
Miss Krabappel, yeah. This is Harry Shearer as Reverend Lovejoy.
Wild accusations. Woohoo! I accuse Goody Flanders.
I accuse Goody Badwife.
We killed her on Sunday.
It looks like he ate her also.
Simpson! Bart, quit it! She put a spell on me. Must drop pantaloons.
We have 2 scenes of naked rear ends in churches in one Halloween episode.
Job well done,
That
boys.
may be a record.
I was just about to accuse her.
This is crazy. I'm not a witch.
Then how come your laundry is always much whiter than mine?
Oh, I've heard enough. Burn her!
who wrote this one?
This is Ned Goldreyer, who is not here today. But Matt Selman is filling in for Ned Goldreyer.
Process works. You sit on the broom and we shove you off the cliff.
What?
Well, hear me out. If you're innocent, you will fall to an honorable Christian death. If, however, you are the bride of Satan, you will surely fly your broom to safety.
Now, Mark, to animate a segment like that when you're looking down like that, those backgrounds, to give that feeling of depth in 2D, I mean, is there how do you do it?
Well, just actually we draw a perspective grid going to a vanishing point, and then we just animate like the rocks falling into the vanishing point.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
There's also a great performance in this by Julie Kavner, not only as Marge, but as Patty and Selma, too. We really wanted to give Julie a showcase. She was really terrific in this.
Color did a great job on this episode in that we went with lack of color most of the time for the puritanical stuff. That there's mostly grays and browns. And then as we were coloring it, I requested that Marge be green, thinking of the Wizard of Oz witch.
Right.
And
Yeah, it's really good that the Simpsons were originally yellow. Otherwise, this green wouldn't have worked at all.
That's right.
Would have been a different show.
We thought it was a cool surprise that Marge actually turned out to be a witch.
Yeah, I remember. Yes. Yeah.
But it wasn't a nice commentary on McCarthyism, which I really wanted at the time.
This needs more Eye of Newt. You always want more Eye of Newt. If it were up to you, the brew would be nothing but newt eyes. Well, look who's here. If I knew you were coming, I'd have baked a cat. What a day.
So you baked a cat instead of cake. If, those of you.
It's not really a pun.
No, it's not really.
Look at them up there plotting our doom. They could force us to commit wanton acts of carnality.
Yeah, that'll be the day. We've already gone way past our life expectancy.
In this time period, Ned, with his same personality, is the least religious and most outlandish person.
That's true, yes. That's
good observation.
His feet are on the ground now.
Yeah. And it may be the only time he's expressed, like, really displeasure with his wife or unhappiness with their sex life. Yeah.
That little kick the heels was sort of an homage to Chuck Jones with that little
Witch
like
Hazel?
Bugs Bunny with
No.
the witch. She would.
What
every
was her
time-
name? Was it?
I think it was Witch Hazel, and she would jump up in the air and click her heels.
Oh,
and
yeah,
little
yeah.
bobby pins would be left behind, which we actually suggested, but we decided not to go that far.
Brilliantly voiced by June Foray, by the way.
Yes,
That character.
yes.
Like how the kids just meekly get in the sacks.
These are the sweetest, best kids.
Yes, they are very. Okay. It's Nancy
My kids won't get in
Cartwright
the
and
bag.
Pamela Hayden as Rod and Todd. Although to this day, I still can't tell you which one's which.
Sure you ladies wouldn't prefer some gingerbread children instead?
They're boneless.
I have this cell right there.
I'll give you $4,900.
That little owl was a request after the animatic. That's I think you guys just called me here and said, put it in owl turning its head right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was an after, late in the game thing.
Save
I
the
had a
show.
big laugh.
What the hell were we thinking?
Maybe it was to show the passage of time or something. I don't know.
Because it still holds up.
I think it saved it.
I love that eating. Too bad we filled up on kids before.
This guy really came out of nowhere.
Caramel cod. I mean Halloween. And it wasn't long before this yearly custom became an annual tradition.
See, we could have used an owl to show this transition. It would have been very helpful.
This is where we said to put the owl.
And he should have looked a year older.
Come on, give it some candy. Don't pretend you're not home.
It was actually a challenge to design all the costumes that would work in period.
What about that one?
Homer's? I don't know.
I love this shot, Mark. This is a terrific shot.
Yeah.
Oh, an ageless reference to the X-Files. I actually used to get a lot of her fan mail here when the show was on the air because fans would write to the character. So they would come to like Agent Scully or Agent Dana Scully, and a lot of times they would wind up at my office.
And when you sent back a picture of you in a low-cut dress, they were not too happy.
Oh, more funny names. There was one year we actually didn't do the names, wasn't there, George? Where we just dropped it
I
completely?
think so. I kind of got disenchanted with the names over the years.
Yeah.
And I thought they were taking up too much screen time and were distracting. But I was overruled, so they're back.
More distracting than ever.